and welcome back to part 16 of Neptunia Reverse, where it's time for the end of chapter side questathon, where we go explore optional dungeons instead of advancing the story. Now we're in between chapter 4 and 5. And this one's going to be a lot shorter than some of the other ones, where we do our breakthrough explorations, because after this is the Nash volcano, or the Shea volcano, the volcano level. And the volcano level is a ridiculous difficulty spike if you're doing the optional dungeons. Like, the optional dungeons, after every like 3 or 4, bump up in difficulty. It's because they expect a whole chapter's worth of content to have been and gone by you before you take it on. The problem is that they rarely line it up perfectly to actually go up with the chapters. So this dungeon feels about right difficulty rise. The next dungeon feels like you should do it after the end of chapter 5. And to jump the gun a little bit, when I come back for later on to get a few bits and pieces to explore more optional dungeons at the end of chapter 5, the place still kicks my ass, so I don't know what's going on with its difficulty, because when we go to the Millennium Labyrinth, which is the dungeon after the next one, at the end of chapter 5, I don't really have any trouble with that dungeon outside of its optional boss. It's kinda crazy how difficult the Nash volcano is for like no good reason. But that being said, these are the last two what I'd consider normal to get into optional dungeons. Like, as in, you get the resources to unlock the next one in the previous one, or if there's an extra, you're gonna get it in the next plot dungeon. After the Nash volcano, the next one, and the reason why I remember it by name, the Millennium Labyrinth, is because you're not getting in there if you're just going through the main story or just doing the optional dungeons as they come and go. There will be a set resource that you straight up cannot get. There is a reactor item. I think it's like Magical Reactor 3, I think. Magical Reactor 2 and Magical Reactor 1 we both got from Killer Shines or Killer Sheens. Magical Reactor 3 you do not get from a Killer Sheen. You have to fight an optional boss that is a Killer Sheen. But I mean, you don't fight a mandatory Killer Sheen. It just shares the aesthetic, but it just has a different name. And so you have to hunt that thing down and kill it to get the Magical Reactor. It doesn't appear as a normal optional boss in any dungeon. Instead, in the Nash volcano, or Nash volcano, whatever it's called, the next area we're going to after this one, you need to get the resources to build the plan to add extra enemies to that dungeon. Once you add extra enemies to that dungeon, when you go back in, you'll then be able to find a new variant of the Killer Sheen in there. Killing that will give you the resource to access most of the Millennium Labyrinth, but not all of it. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, in the Millennium Labyrinth, about 3/4 of the way through, there's a teleporter that takes you to a different area on a platform you can't jump up to with the normal jump height. Meaning you have to actually get your jump extended and boosted before you can. And like I said, in the first 3 games, your jump height, when extended, once you get Jumping Star, what your jump height becomes is what is the default in the 4th game. And when you get the jump height booster in the 4th game, it goes super high. And I feel like the way the 4th game got it was, it got it right. Your jump should be higher and have more vertical planes of exploration to make it more interesting. Because a lot of Nep 1's level design is pretty flat. Like, yeah, you have slopes, but you're not really... There it is, the Nansei volcano. Oh, Nansei volcano. It's a hard one to pronounce, alright? I don't know if there's a silent letter in there, or if it's... Am I missing something? I know it's not Nash volcano, now I've read it. So I hadn't read it again since starting this recording, as you can tell, which is why I pronounced it so horrendously wrong. I usually just call it the volcano level, if I'm honest. I know it's not the only volcano level in this game, because of course there isn't, but it's the one that most people remember going through it because of the like bizarre difficulty spike.
Now's my chance. It's my turn.
But this optional dungeon, this first one that we're actually in, really isn't too bad. It's kind of standard at this point. And it's unfortunate that I say that, because this game could have really done a hell of a lot more with some of its optional dungeons. And the sequels kind of do, but kind of don't. Like, they make it a bit more diverse, but a lot of them, especially in the 3rd game, just make it excuses to do more stuff before endgame, so you get a different ending. Like, it'll be, oh, in this optional dungeon, there is an item that you need that will grant you access to another ending, or something like that. Like, they do that a lot in the 3rd game. So it still doesn't feel too interesting. Like, I feel like the 4th game spiced it up enough with the optional dungeons that it felt a little bit more worth it. And even then, looking back on it, it's kind of hard to justify when you're just watching to kind of stick around sort of thing. But I digress. We've got an optional boss here. And you're gonna, anytime I have a disc on Vert in this game or the second game, I make sure the disc has SP restoration. Some kind of SP regen or restoration or whatever you want to call it. Solely because the Sylphet Spear. Being able to consistently pull off Sylphet Spear can be such a relief in this game. To be able to constantly have that extra damage dealing. And with some of her buffs and debuffs as well, like Terai Division is an amazing debuff at any stage in the game, because yes, it doesn't lower its attack, it lowers its movement and options, so you can make the boss or enemy you're fighting more restricted in where they can go and what they can do, which adds up. It really does. In the same way that Blanc, as time goes on, gets a lot of defensive buffs for the party-wide, and if you start using them, they start adding up. There'll be a few bosses later on where you'll see when we don't have the buff, they nigh on one-shot us, but when we do have the buff, they barely scratch us, because Blanc's buffing skills are kind of ridiculous. You're going to see, now we have Super EXE, you might have noticed our EXE bar has skyrocketed through here. It hit level 4 very quickly. Because of that, you're going to see me be a lot more haphazard with EXEs in this game, because I know I can get away with it. The only EXE, like, I use it a couple times, but you're not going to see me use it too often, is Blanc's. Because Blanc's EXE level 1, Hard Break, as the name might imply, is intended to be used as a breaker, not a damage dealer. Of the 4 goddesses, her EXE does the least amount of damage. But if they still have guard points on, it will probably shatter them. So, if you can get it, which it isn't easy because Blanc is actually one of the slower members of the game, if you can get a turn where every single character is about to go and Blanc goes first and you have full EXE, have Blanc use her EXE and then everyone else follow, because you'll not guarantee, but you'll probably break the guard if you've been working on it. And here I buy Treasure Hunter because it makes it so you get better loot drops more often. And now it's like, you see, like, okay, we can't go into the Millennium Labyrinth because we don't have the Magical Reactor free. And so we're not going to get the Magical Reactor right now, just because I know we won't win the fight. And so instead of going for it now, I decide I'll come for it later, which will be next chapter. So we're going to go through the Nunse, or whatever it's called, volcano now, but we're not going to add the extra enemies. We'll come back for that later when I have faith we'll survive. Because this place is ridiculous. I cannot stress enough, this place is insanely difficult if you enter it at this point in the game. All of the enemies here are hovering around level 60, I want to say. And I know that's entirely a wild guess, but it's just how it feels to me. It feels like they are significantly higher level than you. And you're going to see throughout a lot of the fights here, well, the ones that I keep in anyway, a lot of them, they just tank everything I throw at them. I mean, look, the wood skeleton at the end there, look how much health he still has after a full Sylphet Spear. And you're also going to see me make more of an effort to space out the entire party, just because it's really not safe to keep people close.
My turn. You, there.
Even as I say that, as past me puts blood right next to Nep, so they both get smacked.
Now, what shall I do?
Whereas these enemies in particular aren't too bad. The main threats are the mechanical, like, round robot knight things. You know what I mean if you've played the game before. They kind of have wings. They look like little demon things, but they're all like mechanical, and they have like a little spear in their hand, like a shield in the other. Those things, they're the real threat in here, because they do insane damage, have insane defense, and can go viral, so they can bump up all their stats and get a free full heal. Oh, I kept this fight in as well.
It is finally my turn.
Sometimes I forget what fights past me keeps in and what fights past me skips.
Now, who would like to taste
because I said the general rule of thumb I always go for, if it's a new enemy or if the fight's interesting to some extent, I keep it in. And I imagine, because there's no new enemies in this fight, it's either something interesting. Yeah, because it's a viral. There it is. I was gonna say I doubt it's because I forgot. Because I spend a bit too much time when I'm editing these videos. Speaking of, I need to edit a bit more on them. Another one later on. Because I got distracted because I want to try and 100% Psychonauts 2 before Genshin 2.1 releases, which as of this recording it comes out tomorrow. When this comes out, it will come out on the day of its release. So essentially, once this video, once I finish this talk and I put it on process, I'm firing back up Psychonauts 2 to try and 100% it. I've 100%ed every single brain level. I literally just need to find like one Psy core, one card. No, I think it's 2 cards. One questionable area and one in the actual Mother Lobe. And then I've 100% the game, so I'll beat rank 102. And then all I need to do for the Platinum is buy like the last couple pins in the shop. Well, I'm genuinely that close to 100%ing it. Which might make me... Well, I said I've 100%ed Psychonauts 1, but I don't have all the trophies in Psychonauts 1. Because when I was doing my live stream, I didn't realise that there's like a shit ton of optional little scenes that you can experience in the first half of the game that vanish completely after you do Lungfishopolis. Because all the kids get kidnapped by then and lose their brains. And it's like a whole bunch of them you can't then re-access once you get the kids' brains back. And there's trophies tied to seeing those optional scenes through to the end. So it's like, well, I'm going to have to get all those trophies then on a second playthrough at some point. There's also, rather annoyingly, a trophy that's like, buy from the shop on Christmas. It's like, I'm never going to remember to do that. Because when it comes to like Christmas week, and it'll probably be the same again, I usually straight up just take time off, spend time with family, and rarely sit down and play too much. It's why I always make sure my Let's Plays, whatever I'm doing, wrap up like a week or two before Christmas or early-ish in December. Like the moment it hits December, my priority is finish whatever I'm on. Because I never want things to bleed in. Because if it gets to like the week of Christmas, even if I'm in the middle of a Let's Play, I'm taking that week off to spend time with family. Oh, here it is. Here's the Dragon Knight. And get used to it. For some strange reason, the Dragon Knights in this place have it out for Nep and Nep alone. If Neptune is alive, doesn't matter where I put her, doesn't matter what she's doing, they will beeline for her and put her down. And I even have evidence of it. There's a fight coming up where, I kid you not, a Dragon Knight puts Neptune down in the ground 5 fucking times. And I get her back up, and then literally the next turn, it just kills her again. That the only reason Magus died in that fight is because she was in the crossfire, but that fucker was aiming for Nep. So I get Magus up, and I was like, you know what, fine, I'll get Nep up and just get her to like, hopefully move away. Either that, or, yeah, like, I make her move slightly out of position, so if it does that attack again, it won't catch Magus.
I could have done better.
But those things, I don't know why. Like, I can imagine it has to be something to do with the AI. And if I had to guess, maybe it's to do with Nep's stats. Either Nep's stats are high enough to make her a bigger target, or low enough that they see it as an easy kill. But either way, Neptune did something wrong. Neptune upset them some way or another, because these Dragon Knights, all of them have it out for Nep in this place, and I don't know exactly why. Here's the fight in question. That's one time it kills Nep. The next 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 time I get her up, it kills Nep. Literally, it only killed Nep, and it killed her 5 times. I was like, what the fuck? Like, Nep just got just demolished. It was ridiculous. She got mortally wounded. She shouldn't be moving anymore. It's like every single time I've approached a... I think I skipped the rest, but every single time I approach one of those Dragon Knights from this point onwards, I guarantee you, Nep died at least twice. It eventually got so bad and frustrating for me that if you pay attention to my EXE gauge in the bottom left corner when we're exploring the field in between each fight, you might notice it start to jump around a little bit. Because I start using EXEs on the normal fights because Nep just kept on getting decked. Like, there's only so many times I could watch her die and be like, oh great, that's another resurrection item wasted. And now I got a healer again. Before eventually I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to start ripping out EXEs to start killing these things. There's an optional boss over there, but you're going to see me swerve it right this second, because there's a second half to this dungeon. And in that second half / second zone, there's a save point right next to one of them. Use the save point before you fight. If you've got a save point that you can use next to a boss, take it for goodness sake. Don't just fight the one in the middle of nowhere. And for showing a bit of mercy, the game does give you a few more angel wings here, so you can resurrect a bit more. So our EXE is on level 4 now, so pay attention the next time we fight one of those Dragon Knights if it drops. Just pay attention for me. Just keep a little glance when I start talking about other stuff. But talking of optional bosses, that giant doggo that was in duty space that and I ended up not killing because we kind of can't right now. You probably could maybe squeeze through and get it killed right now. I decided not to and leave it till the in-between of the next chapters. So like between chapter 5 and 6. But if you've got your EXE to level 4, get it to its guard, it's almost broken. Have everyone go into defense until you can get a full turn rotation. Look at the EXE bar, by the way. Until you can get a full turn rotation. And so you literally all 4 members will be able to go. And then have all 4 of you use your EXEs. Preferably if you have Blanc go first, just because of the guard breaker. EXE even better, because she's going to be doing less damage than everyone else anyway. So you might as well have her be the one that breaks the guard. You might be able to get the kill. But I choose to leave it until I know it'll be a bit more of a comfortable win later on. And so if you're following along, you can follow a bit easier and be like, oh, okay, I can go for it there. Alternatively, you can get weaker enemies. That system change and put that on to defeat the boss. I choose not to because it literally is easy mode. In the same way that stronger enemies is hard mode. And so keeping it on neutral for the whole game, I think is only right. I might put it on weakened enemies. If I'm honest, I might put it on weakened enemies to get through the Colosseum quicker. Just because the Colosseum, which I can't remember if we unlock in this part or if we just unlock it very soon. They have some fights in there that expect you to do an excessive amount of post-game grinding. And keep in mind there's a trophy in Reverse for clearing out the Colosseum completely. I really can't be bothered to do that grind. So if I can if I can put on weaken enemy and it works to the Colosseum, I might do that and then try and just like bullshit my way through it. Just so I can get the trophy, because the Colosseum in all the NEP games aren't that interesting. I know there's that new survival mode as well, which I've yet to bump into, so I don't know if it's something that you just unlock or if it's a post-game thing. We'll find out together, because as I've said before, all of my practice for building up into this Let's Play was on Rebirth 1, not Reverse. And so as soon as we broke into Chapter 3, everything after that is technically new to me. And I mean that, like, it's the same experience as Rebirth 1, so I know what I'm doing, what to expect, yada yada. But the new music tracks, when they come in, always catch me by surprise. Like, every time a new music pack comes in, like we went into Chapter 4 and I saw the snowy fields, I didn't know it was going to be super snowy. And they had actually changed the aesthetic of that zone. That's what I mean, like you're going to see every now and then, like, fresh reactions from gameplay me. Where, like, we go into a dungeon that has unique music, and you might see me stop and kind of look around for a minute in it. There's actually one coming up that I just recorded, where it's an optional dungeon, and it has a track in it I have never heard before, and I went into it, it's like, it's entirely optional, it's just a generic cave, and for some reason it has this really rocking good track in it. And then you just see me, like, when I'm playing it, just stop for a second and look around going, what the fuck? Because I was like, what the hell's with this music? Why is it so good for this optional cave? But I do love that. I genuinely appreciate that they went out of their way to make a bunch of new music for this game. Because as much as a lot of people, and myself included, criticize the existence of this game, and will continue to do so when the second and third one inevitably happen, the fact that they went out of their way to, you know, add new stuff, add new music, like add ray tracing on all the environments, which is why Nep and Co reflect off the ground so vibrantly as they do, and everything else in the environment does so vibrantly. Have the game running at, you know, a good frame rate for once, and everything else in between, like making it a party of 4. Like, it's all really nice quality of life stuff. As I said, this version of NEP 1 feels more in line with the rest of the series now, which is something I don't think it's ever truly had, at least to me. The first game, other than the fact it's not canon, it's based in Super Dimension, has always kind of felt like an oddball. It's always felt excluded from the rest of the series. And now this, although it's still got a few of the oddities that make it the first game, it feels a heck of a lot more in line with the later titles now. But anyway, as we're rinsing this optional boss with more EXEs, the tortoise boss in itself, you should be wary of, because other than the fact it's very bulky in its defense, which is why Spiral Break isn't doing the damage I wish it would, it's also extremely bulky. Like, Humon, it's just tanked 120,000 damage so far, and it's going to be even more. Even though Heartbreak is, like I said, it's a weaker EXE, it's still an EXE, and it's going to just tank it again. Because look at that damage scale right now. We've done 139,000 damage so far this turn. I think this is going to bump, yeah, 153,000.
This is the end.
This is probably going to make it around 160.
It's my
Oh, just
turn.
under. I mean, look at that. I'm sitting, I'm like, what? How is this thing still alive? So I'm like, you know what, fine. I'm just going to keep on going. Have a Neptune break.
Special.
And because of Super EXEs, all of this, because every single action in the game, including EXEs, adds more meter to your EXE gauge anyway. Because of Super EXEs, we get enough build up on the meter that we can kind of just keep it going for nearly 5 in a row. Which is not really supposed to happen, but you can. So now look at the damage scale. 221,000. It's still alive after 221,000. But look at the EXE gauge. It's almost full again for us to use a 5th one this turn. So I just go for it.
There.
Because every time you use an EXE, it has a chance to push back the enemy's turn anyway. So I use that to squeeze in a 5th EXE in one turn. Super EXEs I cannot recommend going for enough, and this applies to the series. Any game where Super EXE is available for you to get, you should prioritize getting it.
May your spirit be cleansed.
Because you can just essentially stun lock bosses to death. Which is what happens here. 309,000 damage later, it finally dies.
Level up. Yay!
And if you're playing Rebirth 1, that wouldn't have been enough for one of the 2 trophies. In Rebirth 1, there's a trophy for getting 100,000 damage, which we would have got, but there's another one for getting a 100-hit combo. We got 97 hits on that, so that wouldn't have been enough. I've never, Rebirth 1, 2, and 3 on Vita, I haven't platinumed any of them. And a lot of them is because they have very annoying trophies. The second game, I think, is probably the one I'm least likely to ever platinum, because it's a separate trophy for every single ending in that game. And as I've said before, that game has way too many endings as is. But we've unlocked the Colosseum from that.
The Colosseum's been
And the Colosseum is just loads and loads of fights. If you win them, it affects the shares as well. So you can actually use it to speed up the grinding, because you can rematch any Colosseum fight. So when you're like trying to alter shares late game for the different ending, or to unlock extra stuff, you can very easily grind it through here. The problem is, however, is that, well, look at the recommended levels on some of these. Level 999 at the bottom there, with the Trick Clown. And this is what I mean, like because there's a trophy for clearing absolutely everything in the Colosseum. Level 199? No, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to grind to 999 just to fight this thing. So I showcase like that, yeah, this thing is, you know, you're not winning this thing. But what I might do is see if I can equip weaken enemies and see if that will make just barely enough of a difference later on that I can bullshit my way through this fight. Yeah, I'll probably have to still do some grinding, but if I can avoid having to go all the way to 999, I'd appreciate it. I also think it's a bit of a dick move that you only get +1 if you win that fight, but whatever. Next time on Neptunia Reverse, we're going to go back to Lust Station to try and help out Noir. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.